Namaste. I'm Dr. Kishore Shetty, consultant Ayurvedic surgeon and founder director Veda Vaidya Chikitsalayam and Research Institute, Mysore.
Namaste, myself Dr. Sarika Verma, Chief Ayurvedic Consultant at Veda Chikitsalayam and Research Institute, Mysore. Today, we are here to give you a brief introduction into Ayurveda system of medicine. Vedic medicine is considered as one of the oldest system of medicine in the world and was developed in India since the Vedic period, which is almost 5000 years BC. The sages of ancient India used their observation, experiences, and natural resources to develop a unique health system, which they named as Ayurveda or the science of life. Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word and that can be translated as wisdom of life or the knowledge of longevity. There is also a mythological story behind the origin of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is considered to be a branch of Atharva Veda, fourth among the Chatur Veda, and was propounded by the self-born Lord Brahma, one among the Trimurtis. It is said that even before creating the living beings, he developed Ayurveda. This science was first taught by Brahma to his son Daksha and had consisted of 1 lakh verses, which was divided into 1000 chapters. And later Daksha taught it to the divine physicians Ashwini Kumaras, and from them the king of God, that is the Lord Indra, learned Ayurveda. And it so happened that many thousands of years ago, when diseases started threatening the life and lifespan of the humans as well as the other creatures reduced, 53 sages from all over the world who was greatly pained to see or sad to see the world suffering from different kinds of miseries produced by the diseases of body, mind, and other external causes. They, out of compassion, they assembled at an auspicious place near the Himalayas, and they held a conference on the quest of longevity. So, out of this 53 sages assembled, Sage Bharadwaja volunteered and approached Lord Indra and expressed the desire to learn Ayurveda for the well being of the world. So, Lord Indra was pleased with these sages and he taught them the great science of life, Ayurveda. And so, after learning Ayurveda from Indra, these sages they dedicated their entire life in understanding the various concepts of Ayurveda, and they passed down their knowledge and practices to their students, with which the oral teaching tradition of Ayurveda continued for many thousands of years. And later, their disciples started recording their discoveries, and each one of them wrote a different treatise containing the teachings of their masters. And among which these treatises, Charaka Samhita, which gave importance to internal medicine, and Sushruta Samhita, which elaborated various surgical techniques and also along with the internal medicines, became the fundamental treatise for the future Ayurvedic scholars. And later, taking the principles from both these treatises, that is Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita, Acharya Vagbhata compiled another treatise called Ashtanga Sangraha Samhita. And these, all the three textbook became to be collectively called as Brihatrayis, or the three great treatises of present Ayurveda. All these treatises divide or classifies Ayurveda into Ashta Anga, or 8 branches, or 8 specialities, that is Kaya Chikitsa or general medicine, Bala Chikitsa or pediatrics, Shalya Tantra or general surgery, which also include obstetrics and gynecology, Shalakya Tantra, that is ENT, ophthalmology, and also include dentistry, Agata Tantra or toxicology, Bhuta Vidya or the psychiatry, Rasayana or rejuvenation therapy, and Vajikarana or the aphrodisiac therapy. So, when we look into Ayurveda, we see that Ayurveda is a science which is purely based on the Vedic philosophy, which tells me, you, and the whole universe as one, and the whole universe, including us, is made up of consist of only 5 basic elements, that is Prithvi, earth, up or the water, Tejas the fire, Vayu the air, and Akasha the space. But we all vary in the proportions. That is, we all are the living microcosm of the universe, and universe is the living macrocosm of us. And these five basic elements or the Panchamahabhuta combines in a specific way to create the three physical energies or the three doshas, and they are the Vata, Pitta, and the Kapha. And these three constitutional principles governs the creation, maintenance, and destruction of our body tissues, that is the dhadus, and as well as the assimilation and elimination functions, that is the malas. And to understand these principles, we have to understand the qualities mentioned for the respective doshas. Like for Vata dosha is made up of or is predominant with Akasha or the space, and Vayu or the air, and possesses the qualities like dryness, coldness, roughness, pervasive, and is mobile and clear. And Vata dosha in its normal state is responsible for all the movements of our body, like chewing, swallowing, nerve impulses, respiration, circulation, muscles and bowel movements, thinking, urination, menstruation, say what, all the movements of our body. And when Vata is deranged, any of these physiological movements get affected and cause various diseases. And likewise, Pitta dosha is predominant in Tejo, that is fire, and Jala, that is water element, and bring forth the qualities of fire and water, like hot, sharp, penetrating, light, liquid, fast spreading, and oily. Just as the fire transfer anything it touches, Pitta is responsible for the transformation, like digestion and metabolism, temperature maintenance, endocrine and exocrine hormones, and enzyme production, even sensory perceptions also. And imbalance of Pitta can cause dullness, swelling, and other diseases. And the third dosha, that is the Kapha dosha, is composed of the element earth, that is the Prithvi, and water, that is the up, and has the qualities such as heaviness, smooth, dense, soft, static, and gross. And Kapha dosha governs the stability and structure, and it forms the substance of the human body, and all the oily factors of our body, such as the fat tissues, lubricating fluids like synovial fluid in the joint, mucus secretion in the digestive system, etc. All are Kapha, and imbalance of Kapha dosha leads to either over or decreased in body activities. And these three doshas, representing the five basic elements which are the integral part of our body, are present in everyone, but in varying proportion. And each person is born with a unique combinations of these doshas, which decides the quality of their mind and body, and is termed as the Prakriti. And understanding or determining your Prakriti or the fundamental body constitution is necessary to know your normal physical structure, as well as mental and emotional tendencies, and like how your body and mind would react to a particular disease or a situation in life. And understanding Prakriti also help you to understand what is good for you and what you must avoid, and what treatment should be given in a particular disease condition. So this is why you often see two different medicines and treatment given to two different people with same disease. And this is actually the beauty and the uniqueness of Ayurveda. No two persons can be compared, and all are unique in the eyes of Ayurveda. So in Ayurveda, all the illness is viewed fundamentally as a dosha imbalance, which we can call as Vikriti. And to address these, Ayurveda presents various treatment modalities. But whatever the treatment is, the ultimate goal is to re-establish the person's natural balance of the dosha. And the two key principles of achieving the dosha balance, or the treatment principles of any disease in Ayurveda, is first to avoid the cause, and second to use the therapy or medicines having the qualities opposite to that of the disease causing doshas. And Ayurveda not only focus on treating a disease, but also give importance in maintaining the health of the healthy. and have mentioned various seasonal regimens and diet called as Rutucharya, and as well as daily regimens are also mentioned called as Dinacharya. And being a life science, Ayurveda also explain how a person should behave, or the thoughts he should have if he wishes to have a healthy and successful life. The ultimate aim of all human is to understand the cause of our existence and fulfill his purusharthas, as and how one can protect his body for fulfilling this aim. And apart from using various medicines and treatment internally and externally, and various diet and regimens, Ayurveda have also explained 5 detox procedures called as the Panchakarma. And the 5 purificatory procedures are: first one, Vamana or the medical emesis, and is done to treat the deranged or excess kapha dosha. The second is Virechana or the purgation therapy for treating the Pitta dosha. Third is Anuvasana Vasti or oil enema. Fourth is the Astapana Vasti or the decoction enema. An enema is used to treat the Vata dosha mainly. And the fifth one is Nasya or the nasal medications, and is used for treating the disease above the shoulders. And these are the panchakarmas explained by the Charakacharya. But Sushruta or the surgical group considered Rekta or blood also as a dosha, and have considered Rekta Mokshana or bloodletting as the fifth procedure of Panchakarma. And when we talk about bloodletting therapies and Sushruta and the surgical school, Dr. Kishore is here with us to give a brief insight into Ayurveda surgeries, which all where the surgery is practiced earlier and which all are done today, the instruments which were used, the merits and limitations of Ayurveda surgeries, and the approach of the Indian government to the practice of surgeries by Ayurveda doctors.
Surgery in Ayurveda is not a new branch started in 20th century. Yes, now the whole world is looking at an Ayurvedic surgeon with raised eyebrows. So it's my pleasure today to address you all regarding this great life science, Ayurveda, and its mystery, that is surgery. In India, our union government is very keen on promoting indigenous life sciences and its branches by passing amendments and prescribing guidelines for education, principles and practice of surgery. Recently, a year ago, Indian government passed an amendment stating an Ayurvedic surgeon can practice as many as 39 general surgeries and so as many as in ENT, ophthalmic and dental surgeries. We Ayurveda surgeons in India were practicing all these surgeries since we are independent country. This was an amendment passed by Central Council of Indian Medicine only for the sake of common people, to make them aware of the fact and avail the service from Ayurvedic surgeon. References of surgery in Ayurveda goes back to the pre-Vedic period, like replacement of an elephant head to the Lord Ganesha and a great goat head to the Lord Daksha, replacing the foot of Vishpala with the metal one. The divine surgeons Ashwinav had this capability of grafting even long before actual Ayurvedic treatise, written by Acharya Sushruta, that is Sushruta Samhita, came into existence. Of course, he belonged to the same lineage of Ashwini Kumara, as Sushruta was the student of Lord Dhanvantari. Dhanvantari learned from Lord Indra, Indra from the Ashwina. We called Lord Dhanvantari as father of surgery, but not Sushruta, because Shalyatantra or Ayurvedic surgery is called as Dhanvantari Sampradaya, that is school of surgery. And our master degree is given as MS Ayurveda, that is Ayurveda Dhanvantari. As we lean towards evidence-based science, yeah, we are forced to make a shout at world that we have our Sushruta. He has recorded more than 300 surgical techniques millenniums before Hippocrates and 2 millenniums before Celsius and Galen. Association of Plastic Surgeons of India in their logo mentions Sushruta as father of plastic surgery. There is a sculpture of Sushruta at Royal Australian College of Surgeries stating him father of surgery. There is another statue which is 40 feet tall too tired, with sculpture depicting Sushruta conducting surgery unveiled at AIMS, Kochi. Sushruta took the art and science of surgery to admirable heights, and his era came to be regarded as golden age of surgery. I am honored today to speak about contribution of Sushruta for modern day surgery. First and foremost thing what I want to say is his guidelines on surgical ethics. According to him, one can resort to surgery only after completion of medical education, having a proper practical training in surgery, then he must obtain permission from the king and his teacher. Always wear white and sober clothes. Hair must be cut short, nails should be pared. He advocates for the consent to be taken before surgery by the guardian, and the surgeon must treat the patient as his own son. Next, when we look into the anatomy, Sushruta practiced and taught dissection of human cadaver. He states that anyone who wishes to acquire thorough knowledge of anatomy must prepare a dead body and carefully examine all its parts. He elaborated further about selection, method of preparation, and dissecting the dead body along with detailed information about internal organs, their numbers, position, etc. He called arteries as dhamanis, veins as siras. He explained physiology of circulation along with the detailed anatomy of heart. Acharya Sushruta mentioned there are 300 bones in the human body, 5 types of bones, 8 types of joints, effect of trauma over bones, 12 types of fractures, 6 types of dislocations of joints, along with 4 types of reduction. He mentions 14 types of bandaging for the immobilization. At last, he gives rehabilitation exercises for improved functioning of the fractured bone. Sushruta presented a unique concept in surgery, that is marma or vital spots, which can be compared to the different areas of nerve plexus. There are 107 such vital spots. He classified them based on size, number, detailed description of their injuries along with the management. He was cautious about injuring these spots while making an surgical incision. For example, Viduramarma situated behind the ears, injury to which will cause deafness. Another example is Shankavarma, situated in the temporal region, injury to which will cause sudden death. His accuracy in surgical procedures are well known with the surgical instruments he used. He mentioned 101 blunt instruments which included artery forceps, venous forceps, toothed and non-toothed tissue forceps, endoscopies, ureteroscopies, laryngoscopes, along with proctoscope and otoscope. He mentioned 20 sharp instruments that include different types of blades, scissors, probes, trocar, and canal. He classified suturing needles as 3: they're straight, triangular, and curved. He used both absorbable and non-absorbable sutures. Catgut suture material is the Sushruta's contribution to the humanity. Concept of sepsis and asepsis were well known to the Sushruta. He gave utmost importance to the sterilized operation theatres and surgical instruments. He advised to heat the instrument in fire before cutting the internal organs. He advocated 4 methods for the hemostasis, that is, to stop the bleeding: suturing or ligating the vessels, application of cold, chemical cautery, last one is burning with the heated metals or instruments. Acharya Sushruta was first to conceptualize pre-operative, operative and post-operative care of surgeries. That shows his etiquette towards this noble profession. He was emphasizing on proper practical training before conducting any surgery. He was the first man in the world to use term surgical simulation, and he used different vegetables, fruits, tree barks and leathers to teach different surgical techniques to his disciples. His unique contribution of burn wounds is appreciated by all. He was first to classify wet and dry burns. He classified all the stages of burn along with their prognosis. He gave detailed description about sunstroke, frostbite, drowning, burn by lighting, along with the respective management of these issues. He was well versed in battlefield surgery, removal of various weapons lodged in the different body parts, reconstruction of the abdominal organs which were ruptured due to the injuries, healing of the different kind of wounds. Acharya Sushruta classified different types of wounds and their management in a very detailed manner. He mentioned 60 types of treatments or procedures for healing an ulcer depending on the stage of the ulcer. Interesting ones are making the scars to turn black or white. He mentioned drugs to induce hair growth and for the hair fall in the form of different types of topical applications. His contribution to the plastic surgery made him stand tall among the all stalwarts of surgery. Rhinoplasty or reconstruction of the broken nose. He have written the first ever written forehead flap rhinoplasty of technique still used today. In the same way, otoplasty is earlobe construction. Repair of cleft lip and cleft palate are described by him. His contribution to the embryology and the obstetrics and gynecology are praiseworthy. He teaches month-wise fetal development inside mother's womb, their various illness including intrauterine growth retardation and their effective management. He gave clear-cut difference between the abortion and the miscarriage. He also described intrauterine death of the infant and for which he advocated caesarean section to save mother. He gave insights on the craniotomy, evisceration in complicated presentations. In the field of proctology, Ayurveda have made a great revolution. Kshara Sutra, therapy for the mostly recurring fistulae being fantastic success over the last few decades. Urological surgeries such as lithotripsy are the contributions of Ayurvedic surgery to the humankind. Various ophthalmic surgeries such as excision of pterygium, IND for the chalazion cyst, glaucoma trabeculectomy, and cataract surgery such as attraction of the lens with the IOL implantation. Some of the nasal surgeries like septoplasty for DNS, nasal polypectomy, etc. are practiced by him. So, to put in a nutshell, such a man with flesh and blood performed these surgeries, and what astonished is favorable outcomes from the most of his procedures. The regular teaching of Ayurvedic surgery started with the creation of Samhitas under the master and disciple, that is Guru Shishya Parampara, which gradually became institutionalized in the 7th century with the establishment of a department of Ayurveda at the ancient Takshashila University. As India is known for accommodating all the religions in the country, there was a time when Buddhism and Jainism was very popular, which led to banning of such invasive surgical procedures, as the Buddhism and Jainism believed in non-violence. Later, with the Mughal invasion, the University of Takshila and Nalanda was burnt and most of our texts which contained valuable information was lost. Then came the European invasion and they tried to impose their knowledge onto us. The Western system of medicine was introduced to India by the British in the 19th century. And by this time, downfall of Ayurvedic surgery was at its peaks. After independence and presently under the Central Council of Indian Medicine, that is CCIM, the regulatory body for the Ayurvedic education, the Bachelor of Ayurvedic Medicine and the Surgery, that is BAMS, is awarded to all candidates who successfully complete a 5.5-year course, including a 1-year internship. A postgraduate MD or MSIU degree is awarded to the successful candidates by a recognized educational institution after 3 years of specialization in various divisions of Ayurveda. So, this was a brief introduction to Ayurveda and Ayurvedic surgeries. We also take this opportunity to thank the organizer of the Great India Festival for giving us the platform to give an introduction about Ayurveda. Thank you.